So hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for participating on this wonderful panel on the topic of blockchain. Today's topic is, let me check. Okay, next steps toward collaboration, implementation, and scalability. So we have 3 points in this panel discussion that we will go deeper. And before I get to the first question, let me introduce the panelists, the real experts on blockchain. Our first panelist is a real blockchain enthusiast working at Allianz. Regarding blockchain, he was active in setting up Allianz Re blockchain initiative. He was active in contributing to Allianz Re and B3I pilot project. And third, he is a founding member of the Bavarian Blockchain Association. I'm very proud to welcome Oliver Volk, blockchain enthusiast at Allianz. Please give a hand. Okay, our second panelist, so we have 3. Our second panelist is connecting the world ecosystem of insurance and tech with startups to build innovative business models. He is the global head of AXA Labs, leading the innovation activities globally. One important part are blockchain initiatives. Please welcome Frank Desvignes, global head of AXA Labs. Right on front. How you doing? Okay, to complete our panel, our third panelist has a proven C-level track record developing and leading transformation and scaling initiatives in large insurance corporations and also cooperating with startups. He is leading the B3I as a Chief Operating Officer. The B3I is the Blockchain Insurance Industry Initiative, very famous. So please welcome Philipp Proost, COO of B3I. Guys, why is blockchain relevant for the insurance industry? And why should insurers, like my employer Baloise, engage now instead of waiting? Frank? Excuse me. Oliver? Oliver?
Okay. No, maybe before entering on this point, I'd like to come back and have a view on the history of insurance business. And what I like is to look at in the 17th century, in 1680, where Edward Lloyd created a coffee, the coffee house in Tower Street in London, and where captains, ship owners, and merchants were discussing together to, for the first time, underwrite the risk for the ships to go to the destination. And I believe they were writing on a ledger, and I think this ledger is basically very related to what the blockchain could be today for an insurance player.
Okay, thanks, Frank. So at that time, it was just a piece of paper. Oliver, what are your thoughts on electronizing it to make it digital?
Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. I think this is a great technology, distributed ledger, to bring things automation-wise forward. But for me, you might have seen those decision trees. Do I need a blockchain? If there's a database, yes, no. In my presentation, I usually have the first slide which says, do I need a blockchain? No. Because for me, the question is just not the best one, because you need a blockchain if you have a topic which blockchain can solve. So you shouldn't look for something where you can apply blockchain for. Rather, you should have something where blockchain might be one technology which could solve this problem. I think this has changed in the past. From the beginning and development of blockchain, there was a little bit, blockchain was the silver bullet and show me any problem, we can solve it with you. This has changed. And of course, insurance industry, as we are with our processes very paper related, very manual processes, there's a great potential to automate it, and distributed ledger might be a great means to do this. So yes, besides financial industries, I think that insurance has great potentials where distributed ledger can be an applicable industry, but it's not that we do have to use blockchain for each and everything in industry.
But give me a reason why I, as an insurer, should start to engage now, today.
Well, we talked about this a little bit yesterday. So from a outer perspective, it looked like the hype a little bit went down regarding blockchain. It's not that it's the very disruptive thing. We haven't seen very much tangible real-life projects. But again, there's, and Philip can elaborate this very good. There's a lot going on under the radar. So for me, it doesn't make sense to really step back now to see to say, well, I rather want to be a smart follower than a first mover. But you have to analyze the ecosystem. You have to see what's going on, and you have to a little bit prepared of blockchain applications. And again, blockchain, even if it's then research and development, that will not yet in the near future be an off-the-shelf product. So even if there's something which you can apply, you have to be prepared to use this technology and also kind of management system, because it's a platform technology. It raises great issues in standardization of processes before you can apply it, and it raises great issues in the implementation process. And you really have to do some projects to be prepared for this. Otherwise, you will lose the contact if there really is something which you can apply. Okay, thanks, Oliver. Philip, what's going on under the radar?
I think before I go there, I just want to turn this around slightly to the people in the audience, because I think as we think about this, we would all recognize that insurance already acts as a network. So for most of us to actually do what we need to do from beginning to end, whether that's through placement, post-placement, claims, technical accounting, we're all working with multiple parties. All those parties are connected. And what we've sought to do through insurance is try and keep ourselves connected through various different ways over the years, whether that's through applications we bought, or whether that's through actually meeting in person. And I think really what the whole value of distributed ledger, and I want to be clear that I would make that distinction, because I think that what we're talking about here is something that's private permissioned. It's about only seeing data or giving people access to data you want them to get access to. There's no such thing as a public ledger in what we're doing. I think it's really about making sure that we can use something like this technology, in a sense, for the first time, to begin to think about creating efficiencies across the marketplace. These are efficiencies, this is value that you will not be able to achieve on your own. You may well have maximized your individual company benefits, you may have maximized your cost ratio, you may have improved all the things you're doing around claims leakage. But ultimately, we're all doing the same things multiple times on single contracts. And actually, as a market, we can share the contract through a distributed ledger and only do it once. So that means only doing data entry once across the whole marketplace, and that means only doing technical accounting once across the whole marketplace. Now, it doesn't have to be something that's mega standardized in the first instance. Actually, you can use blockchain to develop quite bespoke policies, and you can even add your own clauses. So I don't think this is really about a drive for standardization, but what it is doing is it's making those underlying processes more efficient, enabling the industry to start cutting its costs across the board. I think there are lots going on the radar screen simply because of that value, and people are seeing access to that value as being key. And what we're discovering is, with the network that we've begun to set up, is that people are coming to us and asking if they can start putting some of their individual initiatives on our network. And it's the whole point of the network becomes important, because it's all of us that need to connect. We're all connected currently, but we're connected in quite an inefficient way, and we're all undertaking processes that each other are undertaking.
Okay, Philippe. So there was already some insights in your statements. Let me get a step deeper. For example, on the topic of collaboration. what are the best ways of using blockchain in insurance? You mentioned some already. Let's work it more out. I heard it's not is it a single user application blockchain, or is it more an ecosystem? Do I have to collaborate with other insurers?
I think that a blockchain or a distributed ledger works where you've got multiple parties. You can have multiple parties within an organization, and so you can use it within organizations. But obviously, if you really want to take advantage of some of the value you can take from the market, maximizing efficiency or capital allocation, then I think you have to collaborate between insurance companies. Now, for a lot of companies, that isn't about choosing a vertical and saying we're just going to work in reinsurance, and by the way, we're going to change the reinsurance market. I think what it is about them choosing things that will be of value to them. Each of our companies that we work in will have an opportunity sitting there where there is already a network that can be identified with a set number of participants, where they can start working on a contract and on getting people onto the network, and that's what my advice
So
would be.
your advice would be, let me rephrase, seek out already existing collaborations between insurers and try to set it on blockchain.
Yes, people coming to us are coming to us with problems they have in their organization that they believe can be solved with distributed ledger. So
Okay.
these are things they already do, they just believe they can do them more efficiently on a distributed ledger.
I have some question on my mind. I just raised a question. As an insurer, as a primary insurer employee, we are not really used to work with other primary insurers. They are competition. So now, if I would like to work on blockchain with B3I, your organization, I have to work with them. Which is it an easy task to work with others inside of B3I, or do you have this typical family issues? Give us some secrets.
I have no secrets. I think that everyone understands that what they want commercially, what people individually do is important to them. But I'll just go back to why distributed ledger is important. So even as a primary insurer, you will probably engage other participants in what you do. That might be claims adjusters. It might be, it could be data providers. It could be all those things. Now, at the moment, you're finding ways to connect those within your organization. If you do this on a distributed ledger, then you're all sharing the information you choose to share between each other. You probably have reinsurance at some level. Yeah. Well, then, ultimately, you can then begin to share your information with a reinsurer to collaborate and get reinsurance if they are on the distributed ledger. And that has to be of significant value to you, because what you're doing for the first time is probably being able to share some underlying information about the assets, the insurable items that you want to reinsure. And people, if you wish to, you can give people direct line of sight to those insurable items from a reinsurance perspective as well.
Some experience on collaboration, Frank or Oliver?
Yes,
between insurers, excuse me?
So between insurance and banks, for instance, we've been working with BNP Paribas CIB on a few things. But my point on that is, if we look at what the technology allows us to do, is mainly today about getting efficiency in our process. It's mainly about automation process based on shared or decentralized database of information that we can use on many different parties, like KYC could be a useful use case, a shared KYC like in Singapore we've seen on the market, the fraud detection process between insurers. There are many things that could be done, but again, I'm not really focused on getting efficiency with the blockchain because I believe this is, this is helping us to get efficiency, but I think there is much more to do within insurers, but also with reinsurers. If we look at the appetite of risk, and if we look at the crypto side of the blockchain, where I see values and I see transaction of value, and where I believe that there is a role for insurer and reinsurer to move to that space and try to work on protecting those transactions and protecting those digital assets. So for me, if we want to forget a bit about the tech itself, like we were discussing in 25 years ago about TCP/IP, I'm quite sure that in 20 years of time, we will work with this blockchain protocol for sure, but we won't discuss blockchain as we are today, as it will be one of the protocols that we will use.
Adding to what Frank just said regarding the cryptocurrencies, I have a question to the audience. Whoever bought some cryptocurrencies? Okay, not many hands going up. So my personal advice really is take 50 euros and buy some cryptocurrencies. It's not an investment advice. It's just like in the 90s, get your email account. Buying cryptocurrencies is not as easy as it looks like, because you have to investigate what you want, where you can get it. Maybe you get a QR code, then you need a wallet on your iPhone. We're all talking about applying blockchain, doing blockchain, but you have to get familiar with some of the basics, and you have to get a certain understanding. And I really can promise you those 50 euros are very good investment to really get you an understanding about a little bit what's behind and how does it feel and how tangible it is. So this is an advice I only can give you to show, well, this is something which will help you. Regarding the infrastructure topic, I fully agree that like the internet in the 90s built the infrastructure to access to information from everywhere of the world. Blockchain is on the way to become an infrastructure to exchange assets, to have a certain structure where we can move things. And at some point we won't talk about the technology behind it, we just will use it. And this is on the one hand within the industry, if we exchange between different insurers, but also cross-industry. Look at use cases with supply chain management, where it is about where are certain things. This is not mainly driven by insurance, but of course if some container ship has some accident and some containers will be lost, from what I understood is that it takes insurers weeks or months to figure out, is there something in this container which is insured by us? And if we can use a blockchain-based infrastructure with sensors and driven by supply chain management tools, we as an insurer can participate in this infrastructure. And as Philip said, we do not have those redundancies, duplications, we do not have those silos from A to B to C and everything is duplicated. It's a very, very great transparency. Of course, we have to take care that we are fine with access rights, with the KYC, but those are challenges we have to face in terms of regulation and in terms of legislation. But I really think this will be the future as blockchain as a standard for digital infrastructure.
Thanks, Oliver. So this is one example about this container claim and how to find out if it's insured by us or even if it's insured or not. So talking about implementation, if I have the value chain, the insurance value chain, let's make another example. I have the insurance value chain, I have the policyholder, I have the broker, I have the primary insurer, and then I have the reinsurer. So I think, for example, my employer Baloise has all of it. And I have the money now for one blockchain initiative. We did start already, but let's make an example. Karl has got 500,000 euros. Where should I start along the insurance value chain? Where would you start? Would you start all on the same spot or wherever?
Well, I think for this question, there's no right or wrong, because you also can extend your value chain to the capital market, and then sooner or later in the future, there might be only the policyholder and the capital market, and everything in between will be somehow.
But we have to start tomorrow.
Okay, then we like B3I did. We said we start with a project where we have some standardized agreements at the beginning. So we do speak a certain common language where we can use a blockchain application to automate a manual process. This is not disruptive at the first place, but being disruptive in theory might really create big problems in the implementation phase.
For example, I just have to spend the money and show some results. So
Okay.
you would start with digitalizing some on point?
Either this or choose any parametric insurance line of business and try to automate this with the means of blockchain, smart contracts, and sensoric.
Philip?
Yeah,
I can see your expression.
Yeah, I'm debating really because I don't know that. I wouldn't say the distributed ledger is all about standardization. So from my point of view, now you can certainly go down that route. I think there are some commoditized classes where you might actually want to use it to drive what we all might determine as automated contracts based on parametric pricing or elsewhere. But actually, I don't think it's all about that. So if I had the 500,000, I'd be saying to you, where at the moment do you have the most friction in terms of of communication? So where have you got a complex group of people coming together to either generate a single number or to generate an outcome? And I would say I would think about using distributed ledger there first. And I would build a pilot with the participants or a proof of concept with the participants initially on that basis. Now that might be in placement, it might be in claims, it might be at the primary end in engagement with customers. I think it's very dependent on you as an organization because each organization currently has different relative efficiencies in different places. And by the way, I don't want to say that I don't think blockchain ultimately has a strategic element too, because I think it does. But I think we have to start somewhere practical, and I think we have to start like most change. You're going to start slowly and build.
Okay, Frank.
Yeah, because we started 2 years ago actually by launching one of the first insurance policy within a smart contract on Ethereum by doing a flight delay kind of parametric things. Yeah, and it was super interesting because when we started to work on this use case, for the question like should we use blockchain for doing this use case, the answer was no. And we finally decided to do it on blockchain, and notably to gain the experience curve that we needed. And what does it mean? It means that 2 years later, we've launched many other initiatives. One in Sweden about unemployment insurance connected to the ledger of the states, and so involving many different third parties. And I believe that we have now the right level of experience regarding smart contract, the use of blockchain and distributed ledger technology. So I believe it's super important to start at some point with a concrete implementation, not a POC, but really something that is working, involving many different parties, and then we will learn on the technology by doing.
Okay.
I fully agree to what both of my panelist colleagues said. I just want to make a distinction between them, because on the one hand, for me, blockchain distributed ledger technology is still in a very innovative phase, and therefore what Frank said, innovation means you also have to be willing to do a step aside. Think about the change from the manual photography, from the analog to photography to the digital photography. Digital at the beginning, you had a memory card where you could put on 2 or 3 or 4 pictures, and it was very crazy. So it wasn't really a development, but now everyone has his camera on his smartphone, and no one is thinking about analog photography. So this is one thing, that you have to push this not by a business means, but a mean by innovation. The other point, if we talk about business means, and here I also fully agree with Philip, that I say, where are your biggest pain points in your company? If you identify them, then you should run a tender, not looking for blockchain technology, but really working out your requirements and then inviting companies, providers with different technologies, because in the end you do need something which is either cheaper or faster or more secure, more transparent or more convenient than your process you have now, and you're not looking for something which is just doing blockchain, because in the end you don't care about the blockchain, the technology behind that can be copy and paste or whatever, but if you have the outcome, then it's the thing you are looking for and it's beneficial for you. And in the last couple of months I really saw some projects, some tenders where we had this constellation, and some of them with successful tender pitches with distributed ledger related companies, others not. But if the technology cannot compete against other technologies, then it's either not the time or it won't succeed in the long run.
I do think, though, that we have to think a little bit outside of the industry too. So, we come to something called InsurTech, I suppose, but actually, I think we're in danger sometimes of losing some of the initiative here, because I think the reason why I would argue that distributed ledger network is really valuable is because it will enable, as Frank was saying, us to interoperate with other networks, whether they're logistics networks, or whether they're car manufacturers' networks. And what those networks are ultimately doing is they are recording assets. They are the start of our journey on insurable items. And connecting into those networks, I believe, will become fundamentally important, because if we don't do it, then other people will. Because no longer is claims history the ultimate barrier of entry into this marketplace, because there's many different data sets nowadays which people can use to understand risk and to rate. And a lot of those are associated with the assets themselves. And I think we need to be logging and connecting to those elements, because I think that's what's going to drive our future and our future profitability.
Okay, thanks, dear panelists. Let us draw 4 lessons learned from our panel discussion today, your personal lessons learned, one after another. Let me start with my lessons learned today. So my main question was, is it the right thing to start to be active on blockchain right now? I learned, yes, it is. There has been a lot of work behind the scenes and a lot of prototypes, a lot of activities and working blockchain systems in the insurance space. So now is the best time to start, because you already set the ground for us insurers. So thank you first for this pre-work. And I'm also thinking about buying for 50 euros some currencies to get into the trenches of this new technology. So these are my lessons learned. Maybe each one of you just give your lessons learned from today.
Yeah, well, just like the last question, I think it's very interesting to see how it is described from a B3I perspective to be the innovator for different companies, which has the advantage that this is kind of an outsourced innovation lab, innovation system where companies participate, where you have the IT knowledge and also have some business cases where you can work on without getting pressure from the headquarter, but also to see how AXA is approaching. They somehow do both. They participate in the B3I Innovation Lab. On the other side, they created the flight delay insurance, which I agree is something where I say, well, you do not need blockchain to do this. Fully agree, but it's that learning phase, and now that would be interesting to maybe catch up after this discussion. What happened in those 2 years? What were the learnings? And maybe you can briefly elaborate about that. What will be the next step?
Yeah, so on my side, listening to you and really looking at the effort that we've done to position blockchain and distributed ledger technology as gaining efficiency within our systems and industry, I would now put all my weight on what's growth and what value we can generate from this. And that's why our main idea was to launch a new product But finally, this product is at some point disrupting the value of an existing travel insurance product. So we are moving forward by looking at where the value is in the blockchain. And that's why I mentioned cryptocurrency, because crypto or security token, or I mean, all the different value that are traded today on the blockchain. And I believe this is where, we are looking for improvement.
So buy cryptocurrencies.
Look at it like a value where insurer has a role to play, I would say.
I think what I've learned from the discussion is that the first step is always the hardest, but it's always when you look back, it's always the most exciting and the most valuable.
So, dear panelists, thank you for sharing your expertise with us and with the audience. Thanks to the audience. Please give an applause again to the panelists, and have a nice day.